20 classic TV couples who secretly couldn't stand each other. Once upon a time, they were the radiant symbols of true love, the defining faces of an era, and the perfect companions in our living rooms. We believed in their televised romances, finding comfort in their effortless screen presence. But when the cameras stopped rolling, that cinematic magic dissolved into a bitter reality. Behind closed doors, the velvet curtains hid toxic workplaces, silent treatments, and massive ego battles that producers spent millions to cover up. Welcome to Timeless Hollywood Faces. Please subscribe right now, because the next time you watch your favorite classic sitcom romance, you will realize that the greatest acting performance is often just hiding the deepest resentment. Vivian Vance and William Frawley. Vivian Vance and William Frawley created the most iconic neighbors in television history. As Fred and Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy, their effortless screen presence and hilarious bickering defined the golden age of comedy for millions of families. But behind the velvet curtains of the 1950s studio, the laughter was replaced by absolute disgust. The massive age gap and bitter personal insults built a highly toxic workplace. The resentment grew so deep that Vance flatly refused a highly paid spin-off show because she simply could not bear to spend another day working alongside Frawley. Would you be able to smile and make the whole world laugh while standing next to someone you deeply despise? Sometimes the magic of early television was just a beautiful cage. It forced talented actors into a brutal rhythm of pretending to love the very people who made their daily lives absolutely miserable, proving that legendary comedic timing often hides a tragedy of endurance. Gene Hagen and Danny Thomas. Gene Hagen and Danny Thomas established the blueprint for the classic American television family. As Margaret and Danny Williams, their radiant dynamic brought an undeniable warmth to the screens of a generation searching for perfect domestic harmony. However, the machinery of fame quickly crushed their delicate partnership. Behind closed doors, their creative differences transformed the set into a battleground of massive ego clashes. The working environment became so unendurable that Hagen walked away entirely, leading the writers to abruptly kill off her character off-screen just to solve the bitter conflict. Can a television show truly capture the essence of a loving home when the people built in it cannot stand to look at each other? Their fractured relationship is a chilling reminder of how easily the Hollywood system discards human connection. They sold us a comforting illusion of family life, while secretly crumbling under the impossible weight of professional rivalry and silent resentment. Hugh Beaumont and Barbara Billingsley. Hugh Beaumont and Barbara Billingsley were the untouchable standard of suburban parenting. Playing Ward and June Cleaver, they offered an entire era a comforting vision of patience, wisdom, and unconditional love that viewers desperately wanted to believe in. But somewhere along the way, the initial reality of their partnership was incredibly tense. Beaumont initially found Billingsley too perfectly optimistic, treating her with a cold distance that created an uncomfortable atmosphere on the early sets. They struggled to find common ground while navigating the immense pressure of portraying an absolutely flawless American marriage. How do you project perfect marital harmony to millions of people when your real-life interactions are filled with awkward silence and judgment? Although they eventually found mutual respect, their early struggles reveal the immense burden placed on classic television stars. They were forced to manufacture a pristine emotional connection for the cameras while quietly managing the very real flaws of human interaction behind the scenes. Tom Bosley and Marion Ross. Tom Bosley and Marion Ross embodied the nostalgic heart of a bygone era. As Howard and Marion Cunningham, their sweet and enduring chemistry became the defining face of television comfort during a decade of immense cultural shift. Then, the pressure of maintaining that gentle facade exposed a hidden fracture. Ross later revealed that her relationship with her television husband was incredibly strained in the beginning. Bosley brought a heavy tension to the studio, creating a difficult environment where Ross had to constantly fight for her own creative voice while hiding her profound frustration. Would you have the quiet strength to play a supportive partner every single day to someone who dismissed your value in real life? The story of the Cunninghams shows us that the protective rhythm of a beloved sitcom is often just an illusion. Behind the comforting smiles and dinner table laughter, Actors were fighting silent battles for respect in an industry that rarely valued their personal comfort. Michael Landon and Karen Grassly. Michael Landon and Karen Grassly anchored one of the most beloved historical dramas ever broadcast. As Charles and Caroline Ingalls, their frontier romance sold a powerful promise of resilience, family unity, and unbreakable devotion to audiences around the world. But when the cameras stopped rolling, their prairie paradise dissolved into a toxic workplace of betrayal and inequality. Grassly endured severe emotional damage as Landon fought aggressively to deny her fair compensation. The once beautiful partnership rotted behind the velvet curtains, poisoned by his cruel jokes and a deep lack of professional respect. Could you look into the eyes of a co-star and profess eternal love while knowing that they were actively sabotaging your career and financial security? Their tragic behind-the-scenes collapse is perhaps the ultimate betrayal of viewer trust. It shatters our purest nostalgic memories, reminding us that the actors who taught us about moral goodness were often victims of the very greed they preached against on television. John Ritter and Suzanne Somers. John Ritter and Suzanne Somers were the undisputed physical comedy duo of their generation. As Jack and Chrissy on Three's Company, their flawless timing and infectious energy brought weekly joy to millions of living rooms across America. But the laughter abruptly stopped when money became more important than loyalty. Following a bitter salary dispute, the network fired Somers, and Ritter refused to support her. Their once beautiful friendship shattered into a cold silence that lasted for decades, leaving a permanent shadow over the legacy of the sitcom. How do you balance the loyalty you feel for your closest colleague with the ruthless financial demands of network television? Their tragic separation reminds us that the entertainment industry views actors not as families but as expendable assets. The iconic physical comedy they shared was ultimately no match for the brutal mathematics of Hollywood contracts and broken trust. Ted Danson and Shelley Long. Ted Danson and Shelley Long created the ultimate blueprint for the modern television romance. As Sam and Diane on Cheers, their magnetic will they or won't they dynamic captivated audiences and defined the romantic tension of the entire 1980s. Then, the pressure of carrying a massive hit show exposed deep creative differences. Long pursued absolute perfection in every single scene, while Danson preferred a much more relaxed approach. This clash of acting philosophies transformed the beloved bar into a tense and exhausting workplace where they simply could not find personal harmony. Would you be willing to sacrifice your own peace of mind just to maintain a working relationship with someone whose methods completely clash with yours? The tension at Cheers proves that artistic brilliance often requires immense personal friction. They manufactured a legendary romance for the cameras, showing us that two people can create absolute magic together even when they struggle to simply exist in the same room. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd were the ultimate romantic detectives of the decade. Their electric banter on Moonlighting redefined the era, making them the untouchable standard for fast-paced television chemistry and sophisticated charm. However, the machinery of fame quickly crushed their delicate connection. A brief, real-life romance turned sour, and soon their mutual frustration became an open secret in the industry. The tension grew so severe and toxic that the producers were forced to use body doubles just to keep the two stars out of the same room. How does a person navigate a professional life when their greatest career success is permanently tied to their biggest personal regret? The camera captured their burning passion, but it missed the unrecoverable damage happening behind the scenes. Their explosive partnership is a tragic warning that mixing intense personal feelings with high-stakes Hollywood production is often just a disaster waiting to happen. John Forsythe and Joan Collins. John Forsythe and Joan Collins were the glittering royalty of primetime soap operas. As Blake Carrington and Alexis Colby on Dynasty, their elegant warfare captivated millions of viewers who tuned in weekly to witness their glamorous power struggles. But behind the velvet curtains and the designer clothing, the scripted hatred bled into their actual lives. Forsythe treated his co-star with a freezing distance, and their relationship deteriorated so completely that they went through entire seasons of filming without speaking a single word to each other outside of their television dialogue. Can you imagine the heavy emotional toll of staring into the eyes of a colleague who actively refuses to acknowledge your humanity when the director yells, "Cut"? The glamorous world of Dynasty was built on a foundation of absolute ice. Their story reveals the deep loneliness of television, where actors are forced to share the spotlight while living in total emotional isolation from the people standing right next to them. Pierce Brosnan and Stephanie Zimbalist. Pierce Brosnan and Stephanie Zimbalist offered audiences a thrilling blend of mystery and undeniable sophisticated romance. On Remington Steele, their sparkling interactions set a gold standard for detective shows, keeping viewers hooked on their every elegant exchange. But somewhere along the way, the effortless charm disappeared the moment the cameras stopped rolling. Rumors of deep-seated jealousy and heavy egos created a thick wall of silence between the two leads. They navigated their massive success while essentially acting as strangers, barely interacting when they were not contractually obligated to do so. Would you have the mental endurance to fake a deep emotional connection with someone who treats you like an absolute stranger in real life? Even though they eventually found mutual respect much later in life, their early television years were an exercise in sheer endurance. They remind us that the most beautiful romantic chemistry on screen is very often just the result of two highly skilled professionals doing a very difficult job. Looking back at these shattered illusions and hidden rivalries, is there a classic television couple whose real-life hatred broke your heart the most? Leave your thoughts and memories in the comments below. We love reading your stories, and if you are captivated by these untold secrets of Hollywood history, remember to subscribe so you never miss a chapter in our dark archives. Patti LuPone and Bill Smitrovich. Patti LuPone and Bill Smitrovich anchored a groundbreaking drama that touched the hearts of millions. As Libby and Drew Thatcher on Life Goes On, they projected the ultimate image of resilient, loving parents guiding their family through immense challenges. But the warmth they projected was entirely manufactured. Behind closed doors, their personalities clashed violently, mixing like oil and water. The working environment became so uncomfortable that they completely stopped speaking to each other outside of their required scenes, forced to fake tender hugs and loving gazes while harboring deep, mutual resentment. How do you maintain the mental endurance to pretend to be a loving spouse every single day to someone you cannot even stand to say hello to in the morning? Their silent war is a testament to the heavy emotional labor of acting. It reminds us that sometimes the most comforting television parents are actually just two highly disciplined professionals trapped in a deeply unhappy marriage of convenience. Kirk Cameron and Julie McCullough. Kirk Cameron and Julie McCullough captured the innocence of young love for an entire generation. On Growing Pains, their sweet and highly anticipated romance brought massive ratings and a sense of pure teenage joy to the screen. Then, the harsh reality of moral policing destroyed their fictional future. When a secret from her past involving magazine modeling surfaced, the protective rhythm of the family sitcom broke down entirely. She was abruptly fired and removed from the show, a decision heavily influenced by the conservative personal values of her leading man, leaving a bitter and unresolved tension. Would you be able to forgive a colleague who used their massive star power to permanently derail your career over a personal disagreement about morality? Their sudden television divorce reveals the deeply unequal power dynamics of Hollywood. It shows us how quickly a beloved romantic storyline can be erased when the massive ego and personal judgment of a young star are allowed to dictate the fate of the entire cast. Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell. Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell built a comedic empire that dominated the decade. As Martin and Gina, they represented deep romantic resilience and absolute joy, becoming the defining cultural faces of love for a massive television audience. But behind the vibrant laughter, a deeply disturbing reality was taking place. The daily production deteriorated into a highly toxic workplace, leading Campbell to abruptly leave the hit show. She filed a severe lawsuit citing harassment and abuse, ultimately agreeing to return for the final season only under the strict condition that Lawrence be completely banned from the set during her scenes. Can we still enjoy the cinematic magic without feeling deeply guilty when we finally learn about the intense suffering the artist had to endure to create it? Their tragic, behind-the-scenes collapse is a chilling reminder of industry failure. It proves that sometimes the brightest sitcoms conceal the darkest working conditions, and nobody should ever have to sacrifice their physical and emotional safety just to entertain the world. Lisa Rinna and Robert Kelker-Kelly. Lisa Rinna and Robert Kelker-Kelly were the undeniable heat of daytime television. As Billy and Bo on Days of Our Lives, their passionate soap opera chemistry kept millions of dedicated viewers completely mesmerized day after day. However, the burning passion the cameras captured was actually fueled by pure frustration. In reality, they completely hated each other. Their backstage interactions were described as incredibly toxic, turning the daily grind of producing a daytime drama into a bitter endurance test where every romantic kiss was essentially a battle of wills. Can you imagine the heavy psychological toll of intimately holding a person who actively makes your daily working life feel like an absolute nightmare? The intense fire they brought to daytime television was nothing more than a beautiful illusion. Their story proves that explosive chemistry does not require love or even basic respect, but merely the shared ability to hide immense personal disgust behind a well-rehearsed smile. David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson defined the absolute peak of television suspense and romantic tension. As Fox Mulder and Dana Scully on The X-Files, their mysterious dynamic became a global obsession, making them the untouchable standard of the entire science fiction era. But the suffocating schedule and massive pressure of global fame quickly fractured their delicate partnership. They were forced to spend excruciatingly long hours together in dark forests and rainy locations, leading to intense fatigue and bitter arguments. There were extended periods where they openly admitted they completely hated each other, unable to even stand the sight of their co-star. How long could you survive in a demanding and exhausting job before the daily presence of your closest colleague slowly drives you completely insane? Even though they eventually healed their relationship, their darkest years serve as a brutal warning about burnout. They remind us that even the most legendary television partnerships can be pushed to the absolute breaking point by the relentless and crushing machinery of network television. Jason Alexander and Heidi Swedberg. Jason Alexander and Heidi Swedberg brought a uniquely uncomfortable romance to the defining sitcom of the 1990s. As George Costanza and Susan Ross on Seinfeld, their awkward engagement became a legendary storyline, perfectly capturing the hilarious cynicism of the beloved show. But behind the legendary studio audience laughter, the reality of their partnership was incredibly frustrating. Alexander openly admitted that their comedic timings were completely incompatible, making every shared scene feel like pushing a massive boulder up a hill. The creative disconnect became so unmanageable that the writers ultimately decided to kill off her character in a shockingly casual way, just to end the agonizing mismatch dynamic. Would you feel completely defeated if your professional rhythm clashed so badly with a colleague that the entire company decided to simply erase their existence to solve the problem? Even though Alexander later expressed deep regret and praised her kindness, their comedic failure remains a testament to the fragile nature of television magic. It proves that personal kindness is unfortunately no substitute for the elusive and purely instinctual spark of comedic chemistry. Jennifer Aniston and Tate Donovan. Jennifer Aniston and Tate Donovan delivered a charming and highly anticipated romance to the biggest television comedy in the world. As Rachel Green and Joshua on Friends, their sweet courtship enchanted millions of viewers who tuned in to watch the beloved waitress finally find a mature and handsome partner. Then, the brutal reality of their personal lives shattered the comforting illusion. The actors had just ended their real-life relationship, transforming the brightly lit coffee house set into a torturous, emotional prison. Donovan later confessed that pretending to fall in love with his recent ex-girlfriend on camera was so deeply agonizing that he often went back to his dressing room just to cry in complete isolation. Can you imagine the absolute psychological torment of having to intimately flirt with the person who just broke your heart while a live audience laughs and applauds? Their heartbreaking behind-the-scenes reality exposes the ruthless demands of the entertainment industry. It reminds us that actors are frequently forced to sacrifice their own emotional healing, smiling through devastating personal grief just to maintain the comforting fantasy we crave on television. Brian Austin Green and Tiffany Thiessen. Brian Austin Green and Tiffany Thiessen were the undeniable pulse of teenage drama and youthful rebellion. As David Silver and Valerie Malone on Beverly Hills 90210, their complex dynamic captivated a generation, setting the absolute standard for glamorous primetime soap operas. However, the polished dramatic tension was actually fueled by a highly volatile reality. The two young stars had recently ended a passionate, real-life romance, bringing immense jealousy and intense immaturity directly onto the crowded sound stages. Their lingering personal resentments created a thick wall of hostility, turning their scripted television romance into a deeply uncomfortable daily reminder of their failed relationship. How do you successfully move on from a painful heartbreak when your daily job requires you to stare into the eyes of your former lover and pretend the passion is still alive? The intense drama they brought to the zip code was merely a reflection of their own broken hearts. Their struggles remind us that placing young and emotionally vulnerable people in the crushing center of global fame is often a recipe for enduring personal trauma. James Franco and Busy Phillips. James Franco and Busy Phillips defined the raw and chaotic energy of high school outcasts for a deeply devoted cult audience. As Daniel Desario and Kim Kelly on Freaks and Geeks, their explosive and unpredictable romance felt incredibly authentic, capturing the absolute truth of teenage rebellion. But the fierce authenticity the cameras captured was actually the result of a genuinely frightening working environment. Their personalities clashed violently, leading to a severely toxic atmosphere that culminated in Franco physically throwing Phillips to the ground during a highly heated scene. The lingering hostility created a deep rift between the two actors, making every subsequent interaction incredibly tense and deeply uncomfortable. Would you have the quiet strength to return to work the next morning and perform alongside a colleague who actively made you feel physically unsafe the day before? The gritty realism of their television romance was built on a foundation of profound disrespect. Their turbulent partnership serves as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of artistic authenticity should never come at the terrifying cost of an actor's personal safety and emotional well-being. Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher embodied the ultimate vision of hilarious teenage superficiality. As Jackie Burkhart and Michael Kelso on That 70s Show, their hilarious bickering and shallow romance became the vibrant comedic heart of the iconic retro sitcom. Then, the reality of their early television years revealed a shocking lack of connection. When the series first began, they were simply two young strangers who completely failed to understand each other, with Kunis finding Kutcher incredibly arrogant and difficult to tolerate. They spent their early formative years actively avoiding each other off-camera, harboring a quiet, mutual disdain while flawlessly projecting adolescent infatuation for the viewing audience. Can you believe that the very person who annoys you the most in your current workplace might secretly be holding the key to your entire future happiness? Their early hostility makes their eventual real-life marriage one of the most beautiful plot twists in Hollywood history. They prove that sometimes the greatest televised chemistry is not born from instant connection, but from the slow and unpredictable evolution of growing up together under the blinding lights of stardom. Television, it is a beautiful liar. It sells us the comforting promise of unconditional love and perfect harmony, packaged neatly into 30-minute episodes. But the human heart is much more complicated than a well-written script. The actors on this list gave us unforgettable memories, putting aside their intense anger, their profound exhaustion, and their personal boundaries just to make us believe in the cinematic magic. Perhaps true professionalism is not about liking the people you work with, but having the absolute strength to hide your deepest pain when the director yells action. Thank you for watching Timeless Hollywood Faces. Be sure to subscribe and join us for our next video because Hollywood always has more dark secrets left to tell.